Thank you for joining us today. I'm Zach Heald, founder of Intercut Productions, and I'm excited to moderate the fifth event in the Northwest Arkansas Council's You Love Speaker Series. This 10-part free series focuses on points of passion. We'll be exploring topics across art, music, culture, outdoor exploration, and culinary experiences in the Northwest Arkansas region and growing cities around the country. Today's discussion, You Love Photography and Travel. Life Through a Lens, focuses on the world of traveling photography, what it takes to make a passion a career, and what it's like behind the scenes. We are thrilled to have an amazing panel of talented travel photographers joining us today. First, let's please welcome Jeff Rose. Jeff and I met back in 2015, exploring. I think our first hike together was Pedestal Rock, which I think you have some photos. We'll see some photos of that area today. Jeff's an amazing photographer. Jeff is an Arkansas-based landscape and lifestyle photographer whose work focuses on the scenic beauty of the Ozark Mountains. Jeff Rose uses his passion for capturing and presenting the beauty of the area as the marketing director and content creator for the Buffalo Outdoor Center, a resort and outfitter on the Buffalo National River. Tiffany Nguyen is also here with us. Tiffany is an adventure travel photographer from Southern California. Tiffany's photography focuses on travel, adventure, landscapes, and lifestyle, and is fueled by discovering new places and immersing herself in unfamiliar cultures. Tiffany has built a diverse portfolio working with many brands and tourism boards, including Sony, BMW, United Airlines, American Express, and Apple, to name just a few. Finally, let's welcome Jessica Nabongo. Jessica is a Detroit-born Ugandan American who first got her start traveling when she was just 4 years old and has become the first Black woman to travel to every country in the world. Jessica is a cultural ambassador, travel writer, photographer, and entrepreneur whose work is about changing the travel narrative and making the travel space more inclusive. She is the founder and CEO of Jet Black, a boutique luxury firm that specializes in tourism to countries in Africa, the Caribbean, and Central and South America, as well as The Catch, a lifestyle brand featuring goods acquired during her global adventures. Thank you all for being here with us. Now, let's get started. Our first question is for Jeff. Right now, in this weird time we're all in, what's it been like for you as someone who's typically out exploring new places? And we kind of touched on this just a little bit prior to starting here of just, you kind of feel like you're living in quarantine all the time. Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, that's one of the great things. I can look at a topo map and find a drainage out here or a new hollow. And every time that I visit one of these spots, I'm just so blown away. And there's always that next hollow or that next bluff line. One of the great things about the Ozarks is that we have like a distinct 4 seasons, which there's a Whitaker Point in the snow picture showing right now. So not only can I visit so many new places, but even places I visit often, I can see, in different weather conditions throughout the year. So like, for instance, a waterfall that may be surrounded by ferns and like lush green umbrella magnolias in the spring could turn into a frozen column of ice or a sheet of ice in the wintertime. You could literally spend a lifetime out here and never truly experience everything that the Ozarks has to offer. But I'm trying.
So what is it about this area that is so unique to you that you want to capture it for others to see?
It's hard to put in words. And I think that's one of the driving factors in why I'm so passionate about photographing the area is, trying to capture that magic that I experience out here and conveying it to whoever may happen upon one of my photographs, trying to articulate this beauty that I see, but just don't really have the words for, and, present it through my photographs. We don't have the largest mountains here or the most dramatic scenery, but there's just this pristine beauty that I just haven't found anywhere else. I love this area.
Talk to us a little bit about what goes into capturing the perfect shot. What's it like behind the scenes, preparing, the logistics? I know you do a lot of night shots. Talk to us a little bit about that.
As far as the perfect shot, everyone's their own harshest critic. I don't know if I've ever taken the perfect shot, but I'd like to think I've gotten close here and there. I think one of the biggest things, especially with landscape photography, is that persistence is key. You can get up as early as possible, hike as far as possible, bring the best gear with you, and put the most planning possible into a shot to get the shot. But ultimately, Mother Nature is the artist. Night photography, I've stayed out all night long, or for sunrise, I've woken up at 3 a.m. and hiked through the dark through briars and spider webs to get out to some random viewpoint, only to find like a cloud sitting directly over where the sun's rising and completely block out this beautiful, colorful sunrise I was expecting to catch. It's about that persistence for me.
And I'm going to lead off of that question just a little bit with, we're looking right now at one of your photos here at Sam's Throne, and you've got some incredible night shots. It's I think it's one of the first things I ever shot with you was astrophotography. And can you give our audience some tips and tricks that you've learned and used to capture these breathtaking night landscapes that you do?
Besides like people messaging me about hiking trails and stuff like that, night or astrophotography is one of the biggest questions I usually get through social media and stuff. There's no perfect answer for that. There's no perfect formula to get it. And that's one of the fun and exciting parts of night photography is it's always challenging. Not only are you taking your camera equipment to its limits, but sometimes your patience to its limits as well. So, but preliminary setup that I usually use, I'm usually using a 16 millimeter lens with a 2.8 aperture. The wider your lens, the longer you can shoot and not catch the rotation of the earth, which causes star trailing. That 16 millimeter at 2.8, letting as much light as possible in. Usually I can go around for about 30 seconds there and not catch that star trailing. And then bumping your ISO up to allow more light in. I live around the Buffalo River, so it's actually a dark sky park. It's some of the darkest skies in the nation, so I need that extra light. So usually around 16 to 3200 is what I have my ISO at. Tripod. Huge important factor. Definitely have a tripod.
Well, let's move over to Tiffany for a couple questions. Tiffany, do you want to add anything to that and share some of your experiences behind the scenes and also how you capture these beautiful night shots?
I didn't think with like night photography, like Jeff was mentioning, there's a lot of planning and research that's involved. Mother nature also depends on, what she's going to be doing that night, but especially for night photography, it's all about research and planning. With this shot here, I shot this in the French Polynesia, and what you're looking at here is a picture of the Milky Way, a picture of our galaxy. And honestly, I think before I got into photography, I never knew that you can actually see the Milky Way with your naked eye. So that's just incredible to me, and be able to share an image like that with someone else that's never seen anything like that is pretty awesome. With shooting the Milky Way, research and planning is so important because the Milky Way isn't present. Like the core that you see there on the left, like you see like kind of like the snail's antenna, that's kind of like what we call the core. That area isn't always present. Knowing when to shoot the Milky Way, usually like between April and October, that's usually the best time to shoot the Milky Way. Knowing like the position, the amount of moonlight that's present, all these different things are super important. This is in Yellowknife, the Northwest Territories. This is a photo of the Northern Lights. I think with photography, you're only seeing the final image, especially on social media. You just see this final image that someone posts and you think, wow, this is an awesome image. Like maybe they got lucky or, it took them maybe 5 minutes to get this shot, but there's always a story behind getting the shot. And I feel like the best images that are out there are the ones that take the most effort. So for this shot, the temperature actually dropped down to negative 59 degrees Fahrenheit. We were outside for maybe 20, 30 minutes. My camera was freezing over. If I didn't tell you like the behind the scenes, you'd just be like, wow, she got a really nice image and she got lucky, but probably one of my favorite shots I've ever taken. So that just kind of shows you that how much effort is involved in getting a shot like this. And shooting at night can be really overwhelming because you're out in complete darkness. There's no lights around you. You're just relying on your camera and your technology and the tools that you have in front of you to capture this image. And that's why I think why photography is so amazing, because you can capture these images that the naked eye just can never see.
So Tiffany, the inability to travel right now must have really impacted your life greatly. What's life like being on pause, being unable to travel, kind of being stuck at home?
When quarantine hit, all this stuff, happened, I was obviously devastated. We all love to travel. I was traveling nonstop for the past couple of years, but I think these past couple months has really shown me that I needed to slow down. And I'm actually really grateful for this time off. I feel like I'm spending more time myself and finding ways to improve myself, not only like mentally, but physically. I'm always on the go. I'd go from country to country. Honestly, kind of get burnt out from traveling. Always either being in an airplane or a car, and just my body, I feel like, was just like, whoa, what are you doing if you're always going? So very grateful for this time off. I mean, I can't wait to get back out there and travel, but I think that these past couple months have definitely been very beneficial for me.
Photography can seem like a really intimidating industry to break into, especially as a woman. What challenges have you come up against and how have you navigated those?
Yeah, photography is definitely a male-dominated industry. When you think of a photographer, you think of a guy with like a huge DSLR camera with a tripod. That's like your traditional photographer. But what I'm starting to see now over the past couple of years, I think also because of social media, there's a lot of girls come into the field and showing these guys that, we can shoot just as good as you guys or even better. And I think it's awesome to see so many girls break into the industry and kind of supporting each other and lifting each other up, because it can be really overwhelming. A lot of girls, like, they don't know where to start, but if they have girls out there that they look up to, other photographers, a lot of times I'm on these shoots and I'm the only girl. Our work just isn't getting out there as much as guys. So I'm definitely seeing that. But on the other hand, I'm seeing so many different girls just crushing it out there. And I'm excited to see more and more girls get into photography.
What advice do you have for a young girl, say she's in high school today, wanting to pursue photography as a career? What advice do you have for her?
I think any advice I have for someone is just to go out there, practice, shoot. If you have something that you love and you're passionate about, just go out and chase it. I actually went to school to become a dentist. I graduated from dental school 6 years ago, and that was like the path I was on. I started getting into camping, the outdoors, adventuring. I think because of the photos I was seeing on Instagram, I got really inspired by those shots, and I wanted to go out and check out these locations for myself. And so when I went out and started adventuring, exploring, I started taking photos, and I think adventuring and photography kind of go hand in hand. And I started sharing these photos and my work was getting out there, just getting more exposure. And that really pushed me to keep going, make it happen. There's so much information out there. There's so much knowledge and tools out there for you to use. I didn't go to school for photography. And I think that's something that shows that even if you didn't go to school for that, you can definitely pursue that career. Just don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Awesome. Well, let's move over to Jessica for a few questions here. Jessica, you're an accomplished traveler who has captured beautiful moments across the globe. There's definitely a responsibility that comes along with telling other people's stories. What are your thoughts on the ethics around capturing others' lives?
Thanks so much. That's such a good question. I think the biggest thing for me is when we look at the history of photography, and in particular, going beyond landscape and looking at the photography of people, right? Portraitures and things of that nature. If you look at Nat Geo and some of these bigger magazines, we've always seen the world through the lens of white people, essentially. In particular, like Tiffany was talking about, white men specifically. There's a quote that says something like, "Only the traveler is the foreigner." So there isn't anywhere in my head that's exotic or foreign. Everything is normal. It's different to me as the visitor. For me, I think when I do photography, I prefer to shoot people as opposed to landscapes. I do both, but mostly focus on people. For me, it's about just showing that person as they are and sort of not othering them, right? And so typically before I shoot someone, because you'll see in a lot of my images, the subjects are looking at me. And that's because I think it's really important to talk to people before you shoot them. What I find is a lot of people are stealing people's images. They're just shooting them either with long range lens or whatever. And I don't always love that, because people take a lot of pictures of me when I travel without my permission, and I hate it. And sometimes it's like, okay, well, you're in a public space. Yeah, it's different when you're shooting a scene, a street scene, versus you're really trying to get a shot of an individual person without their permission. I don't do that because I don't like it done to me. So you'll see a lot of my imagery, people are looking directly to camera because I want them to know that I'm taking their picture. I'm asking them for their permission. And I want to tell a quick story about this picture from South Sudan. This guy was sitting in the middle of the market. I looked at him and I just thought he was so beautiful. He, an accomplished man, his kids were all grown and one was a doctor, and all of his kids lived abroad. And so he would just come to the market to entertain himself. This is the image that I wanted to capture of him. But when I asked him if I could take his picture, you'll see around his neck, he has his glasses. And he actually put his glasses on because that's the way he wanted to be photographed. And I asked him if it was also okay if I could photograph him without it. So usually when I show these images, I show them together to say this is how he wants the world to see him, and this is how I saw him from my lens. But just in thinking about the ethics of it, for me, it's really about not othering people. So even though I'm not South Sudanese, I'm Ugandan, I'm not Peruvian, I can still look at them as they are, as whole individuals, and not other them into this exotic thing to be captured. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. We all, whether you're a traveler, you're a photographer, you're a journalist, you have to look at other cultures as just something different, not exotic, not, you know what I mean? Just not putting that sort of labeling on it.
I love that. I think one of the things I get asked a lot on my personal Instagram from young photographers is how do we make that first contact with somebody, right? Like I think street photography has grown and grown and grown in popularity, right? I think there's a lot of nervousness, especially from younger photographers, younger artists, when it comes to, how do I approach somebody and ask them if I can take their photo? What's that conversation supposed to feel like? How do you connect with somebody in a short amount of time? Do you have any advice or pointers there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I don't think anybody has actually asked me that before. I think the biggest thing is that it shouldn't feel like a transaction. So I think it can feel like overwhelming if you're like, oh, I just want to take this person's picture and keep walking. For me, it's never that. Like the woman in Peru, we were at a place where they were making different items out of yarn. And so I spent time there and I spent time talking to them, but I spent time chatting with her, learning about her life. And then I took the photo. You know what I mean? So for me, it's never transactional. It's like, I want to talk to you because there's something about your energy and your face and whatever that's drawn me to you. So I do want to engage with you in a meaningful way before just saying like, oh, here's a snap and I'm off. In particular, if you're shooting people, I think it's about finding that connection and learning the story, because I also think the image comes out different as well. For me, I look at a lot of images that are shot by white photographers in Africa, and I look at a lot of images that African photographers shoot, and it just feels different for me. So I think, there is that connection that people can try to make.
So I think it's important to touch on the topic of exclusivity in this industry, as we just kind of were, something you're very passionate about. What has been your experience around this topic, and what awareness do you want to bring to others?
So, I guess I can say I've been in the travel industry since about 2015. That's really when I started doing some things with like the bigger outlets, Condé Nast, Traveler. It's not only a lack of inclusivity in terms of like photographers or influencers or things of that nature. It's a lack of inclusivity about the world, right? Like we glorify Europe and then we exotify Africa and Asia and the Middle East. I have conversations with tourism boards, and I don't even work with a lot of tourism boards, which is crazy because I've been to every country in the world, but people still don't find me valuable. People still think that my audience, number one, they think my audience is only Black because I'm Black. My audience is actually very diverse, like 42% white and I think 50% Black, and then a mix of other people. But there's just a lack of value of Blackness. It's just that we're so used to seeing the world through the lens and the pen of white men that, there's definitely things are changing now. I absolutely don't think it's changing fast enough. Now everyone is trying to learn and understand because they just realized Black people exist. In June, I think this realization happened. So now everyone is, open to hearing and learning. But I'll give you a quick example. Travel and Leisure put up a post, I think 2 days ago, saying if one of your grandparents was born abroad, you could be eligible for citizenship, right? I go to the link and it's only European countries. So in the comment section, I said, oh, this is super awesome. Did you even research citizenship opportunities for people whose grandparents were born outside of Europe? I know the answer to it. But you know what I mean? So it's like, it's those subtle things that people don't even think about because the world is so Eurocentric. Another quick example, the Points Guide, they were talking about countries that are opening up. They didn't mention anything in Africa. Do these 54 countries not exist? Like I'm on Condé Nast Traveler's advisory board for women who travel, and I work with Visit California's advisory board as well. And there's different opportunities that have been presented to me. But I think for me, my biggest frustration is that even having visited every country in the world, beyond that, I have a background. I used to work for the UN. I did my master's at the London School of Economics studying international development, and I have such a global experience. And I still don't command the respect of someone who has done perhaps even 10% of what I've accomplished.
You've been able to pursue this passion successfully, and it's led you to other opportunities as well. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your journey from starting out to exploring these other avenues?
Like I said, I worked for the UN. I had a corporate job before that. I never could have imagined I would be doing the things that I'm doing now. But it just, and I liked what Tiffany said, like, just do it and don't listen to anyone else. I started shooting in 2005 just because it was something I enjoyed. It was on a trip to Uganda for Christmas where I did a lot of shooting. And really, I think the biggest thing is like passion and authenticity. So I never knew I would get to where I am now, but the thing that has remained is that I'm passionate about travel. I'm passionate about storytelling. And while the mediums have changed, whether it's blogging, whether it's writing for magazines or websites, whether it's doing photography, for me, it all comes back to just storytelling and just showing people that we're more similar than we are different, and also sharing like most people are good. The other thing for me, and I mentioned it, is authenticity. Even when I'm working with big brands, I have my boundaries, and I love the brands that I work with because they respect it. And so I'm able to continue talking about the things that I'm passionate about. I'm able to be authentic in my voice, even when working with a brand, because I think that's what's important to my audience.
Well, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here, and I'm going to tag in Tiffany and Jeff again here. Can you guys share just a little bit about your passion in photography and maybe how that has led to other adventures?
There are so many things that I've done that I never would have done if it wasn't for photography. You know, for instance, meeting you, our hike, that was through a community that was built through photography. Places I've gone, hiking trips, different experiences that I've been out to get a shot, or, you know, to try to get a shot. There's just so many wonderful things that I've experienced and adventures that I've had, just the act of photography.
Tiffany, do you have an answer to that one?
What I mentioned earlier, for me, photography and adventuring kind of go hand in hand. And just like what Jeff said, you know, if it wasn't for these adventures and photography, photography is what pushes me to keep going on these different adventures. There's so many different places to explore and new hikes to go on. There's so much you can do. And what I love about photography is that it's an amazing creative outlet. It's a way to tell a story, like Jessica said. It's one of the best forms of storytelling is through photography and videography. And for me, personally, when I take a photo, I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to evoke an emotion from my audience. And so sharing not only my adventures and experiences, but getting that reaction from my audience is really what drives me to keep shooting.
Jessica, I want to give you the opportunity to answer that question as well. Share a little bit about how maybe your passion in photography, obviously, like that's opened you up to so many opportunities. And maybe just, you know, how has that passion, you know, opened those doors?
I think for me, it's so much. It's the storytelling as a whole. To be fair, I feel like I don't even share enough of my photography. A lot of people don't realize I'm a photographer. I did my first solo show in Detroit back in 2013, and then I did a show in 2019. But I am looking to share more of my work. I think the biggest opportunity now is to be able to do a travel book. So working with one of the major publishers to publish a travel photography book. For me, I think it's more about the opportunity to inspire other people, in particular Black women and Black men, just to sort of show like you can't let anything limit you. You can't let gender limit you. You can't let race limit you. So for me, I think the best opportunity has been to be able to create an online community that serves to inspire a lot of people.
I think we're going to jump right into some of our Q&A questions now that people have been submitting. So I'm going to start with Tiffany. We have a question for you. And that is, if you look into a crystal ball, what do you think the future will be for travel as we head into 2021?
I'm just looking on the bright side and just staying positive, using this time to kind of plan out what I want to be doing in 2021. I know things will go back to normal. Maybe there'll be some modifications, some changes that we have to do, but I definitely think we'll be able to get back out there. So I think using the time now to research and plan and come up with that bucket list, all those different places that you always want to do, check off those different things. I think we'll be ready to hopefully do that in 2021. That's what I'm hoping for.
Jessica, to piggyback right on that question, what advice do you have to travel lovers going into 2021?
Be patient, be flexible. So I'm actually in the middle of a road trip. I did stay in my home for longer than I have in the past 3 years. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to go now. I think in particular in the US, I think because a lot of Americans right now are feeling very trapped because they can't go anywhere. But for me, I've committed to not leaving the country for the rest of the year, even though I can. I also have another citizenship. To me, I feel like now is the time that we all have to be good global citizens and global stewards. We live in one of the most beautiful and diverse countries in the world in terms of like landscape, in terms of all of the different things you can explore. There's definitely states you might want to avoid right now. Be patient, be flexible, and really start to figure out, okay, how can I explore this country that I live in? Hop in your car, visit your state, and do it safely. I just did another COVID test today, which is not fun. But it's something that I need to do to keep myself safe and to keep other people safe. So I think domestically, you can still travel as long as you use common sense measures. Wear your masks, everyone. I think it's a great opportunity to explore the outdoors. I'm biking way more. I'm hiking. I just got my annual pass for the national parks. So I'm just looking forward to doing everything outside.
Jessica, again, what are your thoughts on editing? Do you think it removes the essence of the original photograph?
This is such a good question. I am definitely closer to a purist when it comes to editing. When I'm doing like when I'm editing pictures that I've shot, I do very little editing just because like I've seen pictures, even on really big accounts, like big travel magazine accounts. And it's like, that place does not look like that. You know, people are adding in high saturation or bringing in new colors. And the thing is, when I do my photography, I want someone to go to that exact spot and say, this is where she shot that picture, versus showing up like, these are the coordinates. Why does this not look at all like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't remove anything from my pictures. I don't remove people. I don't remove trash. I'll try to avoid shooting that kind of stuff. But I'm definitely closer to a purist in terms of editing.
Jeff, I've got one for you. Can you share what filters you use, pros and cons, especially for sunrise and sunsets?
I mean, I don't use any lens filters usually, maybe like a UV or something like that. If you're talking about editing wise, you know, I'm kind of with Jessica there, being as natural and true to the scene as possible. For the most part, I really like to not add or remove anything and keep everything as natural as possible with the colors, which can be hard sometimes with these Ozark mountain green trees, but that's just the way I like to keep it.
Do you find yourself using a lot of polarizers or UV filters when you're shooting landscapes?
I do UV a little bit, and honestly, mostly that's just for in case I drop my lens, because I do that a lot. The UV will take the impact, and it does help with the sky and stuff like that, like polarizer and stuff. But I don't use like neutral density filters or anything like that. I try to just shoot with the camera alone and not really use any filters. So.
A question for everybody. What's your favorite destination in the world to travel and photograph? And where do you suggest people travel now in the US to explore, since travel is limited?
I think Cuba and Namibia are probably my favorite to photograph. And then in the US, I just came off of my New England trip, and I think that Maine and Vermont are spectacular.
Awesome. Okay. Tiffany.
For me, Japan, 100%. I absolutely love everything about Japan. The people, the food, the culture, so many different things to shoot, architecture, city, landscapes. I just did a trip along the California coast, started in LA, went to Big Sur and Carmel. If you haven't done that drive along along the PCH,
Yes.
Yeah, it's just like
yes, unreal. It's my favorite road trip you can ever do. If you can spend a week on that road, that's the best way to do it, I think. Jeff, we'll end with you on this one.
Obviously, the Ozarks are my favorite place to photograph, but if it was outside of Arkansas, Banff, Canada blows me away. Banff National Park, it's just incredible. You can spin around with your camera in a 360 and just every direction is incredible. And in the country like Utah, just the big five, and just everywhere you go in Utah is just incredible. And the night scenes, the dark skies just blow you away.
I've got one more for you, Jeff. What are some top spots in Northwest Arkansas to explore and photograph?
I love the Ponca area. The popular hikes around here like Whitaker Point, Big Bluff, Lost Valley, stuff like that. But there's so many places. I'm
coming. I'm coming.
Alrighty, we have time. I think I'm going to try to get one more question in here, and we're going to wrap it up here. What's the one thing you want the audience to take away from today?
I guess going back to, I feel like, a lot of the point of this is for maybe aspiring photographers and stuff to watch and get ideas of what we're doing and stuff. And I think along the lines of what they were saying, you just go out and do it. Post, find something you're passionate about, photograph it. Don't worry about what people are thinking. If you're passionate about it and taking those photos and posting on social media, whatever the platform, it's such an exciting time. There's so many ways to get eyes on your work. There's such incredible technology available now to capture images. You're out there doing it and posting, you're going to get eyes on your work, and it may be the right eyes to take you into that direction. So just hustle.
You don't always have to go on this straight line path that, maybe you went to school for so many years and you thought you're going to be focused on like this one career. If there's other opportunities and if your path kind of veers off and goes in all sorts of weird directions, that's totally fine too. I think everyone has their own path and journey, and it's important to take those opportunities that you have that are right in front of you. I'm not even talking about like from like a bigger like career standpoint, just like even if you have a 9-to-5 job, don't let that stop you from going out and exploring and adventuring. There's many different things you can do. Just prioritize your time and do what you love.
I think the biggest thing is authenticity. Everything that you do, no matter if it's photography, no matter whatever it is you're doing in life, I think authenticity is key. I think we're living in such a beautiful time in the age of social media, even though there's the negative parts, but I think it is a beautiful moment where you can be exactly who you are, and there's a community of people that will love that, and there's a community of people that you can find similarity with and community with. And so I think be authentic, put on blinders when it comes to your work, and focus on what you see, how you see it, and how you want to translate that to the world. I think it's important that you're not looking to the left and to the right, because when you start doing that, then you start to lose your authenticity, and that will show up in your work. So you can be inspired, but you don't want to be a copycat in anything.
I think that's all we have time for today. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you so much for joining us. Let's give our event speakers some love and thank them for being here. Please follow the You Love series on Eventbrite to take part in our upcoming events. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you at the next webinar.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. See you guys.